Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to another new album review. Now I know that recently I've been saving all of my reviews for my review show, which is called Old Bollocks. Go watch that. But this particular review I thought deserved its own video because it's a little bit out of what I would normally review. I feel like I got a lot more to say about it. Just to let you know, for those of you who are coming to this video for a video chock full of Machine Gun Kelly hate, you're in the wrong place. I'm not necessarily a fan, but this is not that kind of video, and I'm not one of those people. Sure, I am an old school kind of guy, but I'm not the kind of person that just sits around all day saying, man, my new music is complete shit. It was so much better back in the day. I mean, it was a little bit better back in the day, but I mean, I'm not one of those people that gets wrapped up in new music that isn't intended for me, and I'm not that kind of person that gets upset when a Kardashian is wearing a Slayer shirt. I could give a fuck. Doesn't matter. So anyway, so today, the brand new album from Machine Gun Kelly dropped, and that's what the kids say these days, dropped. And I decided I'm just going to take a listen because I know he's been playing pop punk style music, and I'm like, that's pretty interesting to me. I'm going to give it a listen. And so I don't know a whole lot about Machine Gun Kelly. My introduction to Machine Gun Kelly, like I think a lot of people's, was when he made the idiotic decision of making a diss track towards Eminem, and I think it was early 2019. Which was called, I think, Rap Devil was the name of the song, and it was awful. And of course, appropriately, Eminem responded with a song called
Kill Shot
that completely murdered Machine Gun Kelly. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why all of a sudden he's like, I think I'm going to do something else. Not that he's a bad rapper. Like, I'm not saying that. And plus, who the fuck am I to judge that? But soon after that, I saw MGK, as he was being called for a while, in the movie The Dirt. He played Tommy Lee from Motley Crue in the movie The Dirt. And so the guy was way on my radar. And I'm like, oh, he was pretty damn good in that movie. And then all of a sudden, I hear that he's putting out an album that's all pop punk music now. And I'm like, well, that's fascinating. Just because making that shift from hip hop to pop punk, those aren't two styles of music that you necessarily say are going to be related anyhow to each other. But he did it. And apparently his last album in 2020, Tickets to My Downfall, was a huge success, platinum selling. It's over 1 million albums sold. And so he comes out today with his new album, which is called Mainstream Sellout, which, you know, I guess it's a little bit of a self-deprecating jab because a lot of people talk a lot of shit about him. I don't have a lot of shit to talk about him, because the shit that he had done in the past may not have been my cup of tea. And yes, I do. For those of you who are new to my channel, I do listen to a lot of hip hop, but once again, I'm more of an old school guy. So anyway, this is his 6th album overall, but his second doing mostly pop punk. I say mostly because there are a handful of tracks, small handful of tracks that harken back to more of a hip hop kind of sound. And honestly, the thing that was interesting to me when I put this album on was that it's very modern sounding, but it also took the idea of pop punk and then laid it out almost like a hip hop album where there are features. There's even hip hop artists like Lil Wayne on this. And it's really interesting because it's almost like a pop punk album through a hip hop artist's eyes. And that is a pretty interesting listen. Now, don't get me wrong. Here comes some critiques. First off, the vocals are auto-tune heavy all over the place, or just pitch correction software. A lot of people be like, it's not auto-tune, it doesn't matter. Some kind of pitch correction software, but that's become kind of a norm in the mainstream music scene these days. So that's kind of a thing that, like, if it bothers you, then just move on. But also, a lot of the songs are overwhelmingly derivative and sometimes almost drowning in cliches, but in kind of a likable way. I mean, it's mostly just a bunch of short bursts of pop punk. The title track is less than 2 minutes long, and occasionally there'll be times here and there where the tempo slows down a little bit, and it almost harkens back to more of a 90s alternative sound and not so much pop punk per se. And then occasionally, he raps a couple times and other people rap in it. There's some more acoustic numbers, which I guess you could connect that to like Green Day and bands like that did stuff like that. And then of course he does a lot of the Tom DeLonge style accent thing where it's almost like England by way of California type accent that when you hear him talk, he doesn't talk that way. It's just, for some reason, that's the pop punk accent, I guess. But I gotta say, for the most part, it did keep me pretty entertained all the way through. There are some really catchy moments, but there are also some really cringy moments, in my opinion. But about halfway through the album, I realized that, it's obvious from the get-go that this album is not intended for me. I'm a 44-year-old guy who spends most of his time listening to music from the 80s and the 90s. And so I feel like this is for younger people. And so I immediately try to put myself in the shoes of my 11-year-old daughter, who listens to a lot of modern music and even listens to some stuff that's on the pop punk side of things. And I started to think about her and the music that she's getting into. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, okay, hold up. So this guy is a million selling artist. So clearly a lot of people are going to hear this album. It's, for the most part, a rock and roll album. And a lot of people out there always complain, like, rock and roll's, nobody cares about it anymore, and everyone cares about hip hop, and that's it. And, so to be honest, if you're one of those people, which, I'm all about extending the life and the memory of the music that I love, which for the most part is rock and metal from the 80s and 90s, a little bit in the 70s. But this is what is needed. It's a necessity for it to continue and for young kids and younger people to get into rock music. Now, here's the interesting thing to think about for a second. So this might not be the rock and roll album that you're wanting to get everyone into, but as everyone remembers from the past, like, the first rock and roll album that you heard wasn't one that was mind-blowing. It was probably just the one that was on the radio. And then it led you to discovering other things. Now, here's the beauty. A lot of people like to talk shit about how modern music is digested, where the idea of the album, these old ass things behind me, is kind of dead, especially for younger people. And it's mostly just about songs and playlists and things like that. But here's the thing. Music is now being consumed all together. So there's no real definition of this is old, this is new, because as I've seen, recently with my daughter, we were in the car and we were listening to a Nirvana song and then a little bit later a Beatles song, and she said, this Beatles song sounds really old. And I was like, well, it's like 50 years old. And I said, well, how old do you think the Nirvana song is? And she said, I don't know, maybe 10 years? So here's the thing. Young people, because of how well shit was produced in late 80s, early 90s, and beyond, age is now no longer a factor. Is it a good album? Is it good music? Is it a good song? And so Machine Gun Kelly has now created this album that, for what it is pretty damn good. It's not something that I would want to listen to a lot, but as an album, there's a lot of effort put in here. He hits a lot of different marks. It actually gives you a really good album experience where it's not just the same kind of song over and over again. It has a clear conclusion to it, and it's very, very well done. If this is going to be the thing that leads to somebody else being like, oh, what's this Nirvana? What's this Metallica? What's this Guns N' Roses? What's this fucking Beatles? I don't care. It's fine. Because it's all a big cycle. It's going to keep on going. And there's always going to be music that you don't like, I don't like, and then music that we all like. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that it's still going. Because for those of you who watch my channel a lot, It's all about me being nostalgic and talking about the music that I loved when I was growing up and still love today, and keeping the memory of this music alive. And as far as I'm concerned, it's still happening. Maybe not in the way that you want it to happen or the way that I want it to happen, but the fact that it's still going makes me happy. So at the end of the day, I would say Mainstream Sellout is an album that I didn't hate, but also I kind of liked it. But the interesting thing about it is that this guy that kind of annoyed me in early 2019 is now a guy that I'm rooting for. I would like this album to be really successful because of all the things that I just said. It's continuing the cycle of people getting into rock music, and then maybe into metal or who knows. But to be honest, like, I have no problem with hip hop being the most popular music in the world because it fucking deserves it. But I'm all about keeping the rock going, keep the rock alive. And if that means that people from other areas of music and other genres are flirting with this music, then flirt away. It's for all of us. And so I guess that's why I like the Machine Gun Kelly album a little bit, because I feel like he's trying to create rock and roll for everybody. And nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of bands that are made for a niche audience, some of which I love, but the shit that makes the world go around is the fucking music that's made for everybody, that maybe will bring us all together. I don't think this is the album that's going to do it, but maybe it will lead to the one that does. Either way, I'm being stupidly optimistic about this, but maybe you just caught me in a good mood on a good day. But that's my 2 cents on the new Machine Gun Kelly album, which is called Mainstream Sellout. Check it out if you're interested, or don't. I don't care. Thank you for watching my video. I make a whole lot of other videos and shit. I do a podcast called Cranked and Ranked. If you're new to this, check my shit out. Leave a comment, subscribe. Yeah. And one more thing. Let's stop being such assholes about music on the internet. Okay? Cool. See you guys later.